answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Do you think that you guys should run AOC, another woman? You guys have not done well running women, James.
Well, first of all, I don't know why I feel bad about the Democratic Party. We're ahead 8 points in aggressive drag. Trump's at 32% in the polling. So I don't know about, I'm worried about the Democrats right now. I'm not. We're going to win the House.
You're not worried about
and we're
the
going to win the
communists
Senate.
taking over the party?
No, they're a bunch of silly people. Those people you had on there, those DSA people, they're a pack of fools. No one pays attention to them. They ain't going to do anything. Now, if you ask me about AOC, I do think she's very talented. She's certainly to the left of me, but you know what she's doing? What I think good politicians do, she's growing into the job. She's not the same person she was when she was elected in 2018. And when people change a position from what I think is a more naive position to a more realistic position, I'm going to praise them.
Well, that is James Carville of Louisiana, former Democrat analyst. He is the one who got Bill Clinton from the Arkansas governor's office right into the White House and Oval Office. And James Carville, in an interview with Jesse Waters, conceding that AOC was naive in the beginning. We all knew that, James, but you guys were pushing her as the next greatest thing. And now he wants to praise her again. She's changing. She's modifying. She's adapting to the times. You know why? Because she's feeling she's being left behind. The Democrat Socialists of America are outpacing her. She was, with the rest of the squad, on the left. Now she is not as far on the left as the DSA. And the question basically that was being raised to Carville, not so much why are you running another woman candidate, you guys don't seem to do very well with it, but really, really at the heart of the issue is the Democrats have lost their way. They are groping around in the dark, and they hit a wall, they don't know where to go. They have let the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, inside the tent. They're the ones popping the whips now, and everybody's trying to, how close can we cozy up to them without actually saying we are close? They are striving so hard to keep some distance. They are afraid to get just too darn close. But they're willing to allow them to speak for them, to run for them. Chuck Schumer is worried about his future. The DSA will not want Chuck Schumer. Jesse also raising a point with Carville about what else is happening in the Democrat Party, and that would include another, Hakeem Jeffries. He's also not going to be good enough for the DSA. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA. Jamie Allman is off for the next 2-3 days through Friday, and I'm honored to be sitting in his place. So no 3-martini lunch today, but we're drinking a lot of Jack. Pour yourself a shot and settle down. If you're driving, don't do that. But with Larry Connors USA, we remind you you're always going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. You're going to leave this hour with more information and knowledge than you have right now. That is a guarantee every program. In our next hour, the Dems are trying to erase race history. They want you to ignore it. We're not going to do that. And also a debate flashback, basically between Al Gore saying the world is going to crash and crumble, and he was in the debate with Rush Limbaugh. We're still here. That was in 1992. They were having that argument back and forth, and Gore was insisting we're all going to die because of climate change. And later in this hour, Justice is now slamming Dr. Fake and Associates. We will get into details on exactly how that's playing out for you. And our guest coming up later in this hour, John Leake. He co-authored with Dr. Peter McCullough, The Courage to Face COVID-19. He's got a new book out, Mind Viruses, America's Irrational Obsessions. And we're going to talk about one of the COVID co-conspirators, which is now pleading guilty to concealing federal funds and records, I should say, related to research regarding COVID-19. He's pled guilty. The dominoes are starting to fall. Dr. Fake, Dr. Fauci, are you listening? In the meantime, let's go back to the issue and let me remind you, the story behind the story for this hour. The Bermuda Triangle. Still mysterious. Some think they've solved it, but a lot of folks still think, no, there's something really dreadful to worry about the Bermuda Triangle. That's coming up later in this hour. Now, back to the issue of politics. Jen Psaki, who, of course, served originally as the White House spokeswoman for Joe Biden, certainly did better than her successor. Now she's with MSN Now. And she's talking to a DSA candidate, Cindy Nixon, talking about how they can possibly pull everything out for their side. It's not going well.
Who are a member of the Democratic Socialists. There are a lot of candidates who have won in primaries who are members of the Democratic Socialists as well. You are also running, though, in a state, Florida has, as you well know, and a lot of people are watching know, a large population of people who fled countries like Cuba and Venezuela who may have a very unfavorable view of the term socialist, and they may not know you yet. So what is your message to them, and how are you going to appeal to them? Because you need to win them over, too.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to continue to work hard and go and knock on every door and have conversations with people, even if they may not agree with me ideologically. I want to be clear. I just recently joined the Democratic Socialists of America, but I'm also a union organizer. I'm a mother. I am a wife. I am a community organizer, a small business owner. And I'm going to have conversations with people about what it is that they care about.
What do they care about? Not what you're pushing. And of course, you're going to say what you need to when you need to. And we'll point out for you that Angie Nixon, one Democrat socialist, did upset Alexander Vindman in Florida's Democrat Senate primary last night. If you recall, Vindman was the one coming forward, a veteran, testifying against Trump, repeatedly calling Trump a Russian asset and the MAGA movement a militaristic cult built on establishing dictatorship. Well, you would have thought that would have been a perfect cry for the Democrats. No, he's not far enough left. Nixon ran to his left and defeated the fired National Security Council aide 56-44. And yet they want to tell you, we're in touch with you. We know what you want. Really? I want you to listen. Listen. Are you listening? Are you listening? Here is a member of the DSA explaining exactly what their playbook is.
The two things that we're famous for is our commitment to a program and our hatred of the United States Constitution.
There.
And what the program does is it gives us a roadmap to revolution, and it gives us the obstacle that we finally will have to get over to have a revolution, which is the United States Constitution, the basis of the United States government.
What we're in favor is we all hate America and we hate the Constitution. We want to get rid of it. He said the words out loud that they stay behind closed doors and discuss on a routine basis. Now they're getting more public, stating it over and over again because they think everybody's going to buy into this. No, they're not. But then again, you do have some useful idiots with college students. I'll come to that as a perfect example coming up later. But dealing with the issue of the DSA and what they're going to be able to do or not do, they want to make it clear, straight up, he said, what we're famous for is our hatred of the U.S. Constitution. And we have a revolution to get rid of the U.S. Constitution. Is that what you want to see happen to our nation? And what would happen after that? Now, a question got raised to California Democrat Pete Aguilar as to what is happening because you guys are embracing and holding close these far left radicals like Assayed and other DSAs? The response from California Congressman Aguilar.
You've got El Sayed, who's still kind of partnering with Hassan Piker or whatnot. And the Republicans are going to run a campaign saying these guys are radical, they hate America, all of the above, that, we deserve 9/11. They're going to tar them with that stuff. What does the party do overall to kind of deal with that, make sure that the party does not lurch too far left and hurt themselves?
The party isn't lurching too far left, but races are contests between two individuals, and so where this has come up, and we've seen this already. Mike Johnson is going into Republican districts, going into Democratic districts, and he's standing next to folks, and he's saying Democrats are communists, right? And some of the members that we have are bright blue, and some of them are, come from rural communities. They have a brand and they're known in their districts, and they're not, communists. And so I think these are contests, between, Democrats and Republicans. I think Speaker Johnson is trying to, inject this. And I think, there are folks whose interest is to inject that. I can tell you the Democratic caucus, believes in capitalism. We believe in the rule of law.
You say the Democrat caucus believes in the Constitution and the rule of law. And yet you guys, even if you're not the far, far left Democrat Socialists of America, you opened our borders. We don't need no stinking borders. Let everybody come in. Everybody from everywhere. Unvetted, unchecked. Bringing in drugs. Trafficking children. Bringing them in to be sex slaves. And that was perfectly acceptable with you. But now you want to say, no, we really believe in the Constitution. We believe in our USA. We just don't like it the way it is. We want to change it. Now, let's accept two political parties throughout the generations, Democrat, Republican, have had these differences. But we're at radical odds right now because the Democrats are giving what credibility they have to the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America. Perfect example, I'm going to call him Mom Dummy, Mama Dummy in New York City. He is already begging New York State, help us pay for our city. He knew what the budget issue was when he went in. But now he's asking Governor Hochul, saying, basically demanding, you need to give us more money. See, you can't run a socialist system if you don't have someone else's money. We're going to get into that in more detail later. But I mentioned earlier, the useful idiots they're finding are on college campuses. Just listen.
Rather have in America, socialism or capitalism?
I would say socialism.
How do you view the word socialism, favorably or unfavorably?
I guess I would go with favorably.
Like, I have family in Europe. They go to college for free. Their healthcare is paid for. They don't have to worry about it at all.
I favor that over capitalism.
Okay, got it.
I also think I favor that, socialism over capitalism.
Socialism is more geared toward, helping the people in your, the governed.
I'd rather people have that same opportunity. There's a lot of excess in America.
So on campus, if there's a GPA disparity where there's people at the bottom with a poor GPA, would you support a policy where people at the top spread the wealth and give that GPA to people at the bottom?
Help them get a better GPA?
Yeah.
I'm all for helping. I wouldn't give, let me just give you some of my points.
But it's about being fair, right? We got to help people at the bottom.
I've lost a lot of sleep, so I don't know if I will be fair. That's completely different.
How is it different?
Because I'm studying all day for my grade.
I mean, I sacrifice a lot to get my GPA. I don't go out as much as I'd like to, but that's for a greater goal in the future, the way I see it. So, no, I wouldn't sacrifice my own things.
No, I'm not going to sacrifice my own things. I'm not going to take my A rating grade I have and reduce it to maybe a C plus to give those D and F students a better grade. But they're more than willing to take your money and spread it around. And by the way, one of those Democrat Senate DSA candidates, Assayed, citing the Quran as the inspiration behind his politics and also comparing himself to Jesus in the same broadcast. Give me a break. In the meantime, we want accountability for what Fauci and company have done to our nation, our families. It is coming.
He was lying about the origins from day one. Why was he lying? Because he funded those studies at the Wuhan lab, and he funded the studies at the University of North Carolina that developed the techniques for weaponizing COVID-19, and then gave those, Ralph Barrick, his funded scientist at the University of North Carolina, gave those to Xi Jinping, the scientist, the bat lady scientist in the Wuhan lab, and he taught her a technique that Anthony Fauci had paid him to develop called seamless ligation, which is also called no-seam. It's a way of manipulating the virus to make it deadly to human beings and then covering up the evidence of human manipulation.
They're covering up the evidence of human manipulation. That's RFK Jr. about Fauci. Yesterday, one of his former advisors pleading guilty to destroying federal records regarding COVID. He will be sentenced later in a couple of months or more, or less maybe. A question regarding what's happening at this point.
Why would anybody spend NIH money developing that kind of technology? It's bioweapons technology. It has nothing to do with public health. It's the opposite. It's the inverse of anything you would want to do with public health. Well, he took that and he gave it to the Chinese military lab at Wuhan. So these are, and as you mentioned at the beginning of this, we today, NIH, has now issued a policy to make sure these kind of experiments can never happen again, that NIH will never again pay for a dangerous gain-of-function experiment.
Well, never again will we put money into that. We will make sure we control it and that it does not happen. Coming up, my guest, John Leake, and dealing with Dr. Fauci, the scandal, the COVID, and how it has affected and created a mind virus, as he calls it. That'll be coming up. And, of course, our story behind the story, the Bermuda Triangle. We have a lot yet to come in this hour, and don't forget our second hour. Glad to have you with us with Larry Connors USA. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the all-new NewsTalkSTL app.
Love the all-new app.
And listen anytime, anywhere.
Moving is one of the big traumas in life. This is Larry Connors reminding you, make that easy on yourself and anyone else with McGuire Moving and Storage. They can move anything, anywhere, home, business, and remember they have warehouse storage available for you. They're especially good at helping senior citizens be relocated. Call 314-241-0600, 241-0600, McGuireMoving.com, McGuireMoving.com. You know, I'm very proud to say Wellington Environmental has been sponsoring Larry Connors USA for more than a dozen years. Wellington can help you with any hazardous issues at your home or office. And Wellington also helps protect our troops, our nation. Recently, Wellington Environmental has been disinfecting Army vehicles and equipment just back from overseas deployment, making sure they didn't bring back disease or other contaminants. Wellington is also working on some classified jobs with Boeing, and has for years. One hospital had issues with possibly contaminated water. Wellington is on the job. Wellington is also monitoring water wells at an industrial site. Again, in addition to all these big jobs, Wellington can make sure there are no health hazards in your home. He's done it for me. So I'm more than glad to endorse Wellington Environmental. Check them out, environmentalcare.com, environmentalcare.com. Wellington Environmental, your world cleaner, better, safer. Be well with Wellington.
Larry Connors Commentary, brought to you by McGuire Moving and Storage. Home or business, local or long distance. Contact McGuire Moving and Storage. Free estimates and free on-site appraisal. McGuireMovingandStorage.com. This is Larry Connors Commentary on News Talk STL.
The truth about political polls is they are very, very good if they are very right. When they aren't, let's move on. Nothing to see here. Recently, a group calling itself Median Strategies did a polling project. In one, it said that L.A. Mayor Karen Bass had a 12-point lead over her primary opponent. 12 points, that's pretty big. It was also a big lie. Median Strategies also said that in Wisconsin, Democrat Socialist of America Hong was leading by 23 points against her primary opponent. She lost. Now Median Strategy says those were fake polls. They were all part of a short-term social experiment to see how polling information would affect an election. That's their story, and they're sticking with it. What do I think? I think Median Strategies was using fake numbers to push the election to get the results the group wanted. Now Median Strategy says we will not publish additional polling. Right. Former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin once asked, "What do you think of political surveys?" She answered, "Polls, they're for cross-country skiers and strippers."
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL. If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Just the convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime.
Everywhere.
Anywhere. The Allman Report, sponsored by Gulf Shores Restaurant.
And they say you don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind. You don't pull a mask off an old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. As I was mentioning earlier, one of Dr. Fauci's alliances, Dr. David Moran's, pleading guilty to conspiracy charge, quote, to commit offenses and defraud the U.S. It really goes deeper than that. It has to do with defrauding you and your family. Joining us now is John Leake. He co-authored the best-selling book with Dr. Peter McCullough, The Courage to Face COVID-19. He's got out a new book now, Mind Viruses, America's Irrational Obsessions. John, welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's begin, first of all, your response to Dr. David Moran's coming forward and saying, okay, I'm guilty. I plead guilty to committing offenses and to defraud the U.S.
Well, at first glance, you think, well, we're on the right track. It's a good start. I mean, he was very intimately familiar with this notorious NIH grant, Understanding the Risk of Emerging Bat Coronaviruses. This was the research grant that Professor Ralph Barrick at the University of North Carolina, Peter Daszak at EcoHealth Alliance, they were working together with a lady at the Wuhan Institute of Virology named Shengji Li on making bat coronaviruses transmissible and pathogenic to humans. So this was what was being discussed here, and Moran's was trying to conceal his correspondence with Peter Daszak, the guy who submitted the grant, and he moved their correspondence to his personal Gmail email account so that it wouldn't be on a U.S. government server.
Oh, what a nice deal.
He is there. The evidence, the fact pattern is clear. He was trying to conceal his correspondence, which is an act of fraud. It's illegal. But, you know, what I would add is this is kind of like getting Al Capone on tax evasion.
Right.
I mean, so, you know, it's not a good thing for him. He's probably going to do a couple of years in jail. But I think that this slightly distracts from, you know, the real substance is, well, what exactly was this thing that he wanted to conceal his correspondence of by moving it to the Gmail server? Like, what was it that was secretive about this and potentially embarrassing and potentially a criminal liability? That's the real substance.
And I agree. And that also ties to, quote, a conspiracy allegation, does it not? In other words, and I've raised this question repeatedly, how many inside Dr. Fauci circle were going to stand up and go to jail for him instead of rolling over? Now, what do you think he's been telling investigators regarding everything else with Dr. Fauci and COVID?
Well, it's tough to say if he agreed to play ball and plead guilty in response for he himself saying, as far as a lot of your other questions, I'm just going to plead the fifth. Like, in other words, I'll go down for fraud, but I don't really want to tell you any more than that.
You don't think he's getting a lighter sentence, knowing that if you go ahead and do this, you continue cooperating, we'll keep you on a light sentence, a couple of years maybe?
Well, I take kind of a heterodox and possibly an unpopular view on this. I don't really think any U.S. government agency wants to fully examine all of this in discovery, because the liabilities for all of these U.S. government agencies are just astronomical. And
right.
So in other words, it's let's kind of nibble around the edges of this thing, but let's not go to the heart of it, because the heart of it is a massive organized crime. You'll notice that Fauci's this Mickey Mouse preemptive pardon, that period of conduct covered starts in January of 2014. Well, that was when this grant, understanding the risk of emergent bat coronaviruses, that's when this grant was reviewed and approved by the NIH. So that's telling you something. And then we had this administrative pause on gain of function research in October of 2014, but Fauci's agency continued to fund the grant, continued to approve and fund the grant,
right,
on this very dubious rationale that it was grandfathered in. But that really doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So this is this resulted in the sickening of all of mankind, hundreds of millions of deaths. God knows how many businesses were destroyed,
and the damage to our children. The damage to our children. It's going to be decades before we really understand that damage. I'm looking at Dr. David Moran's. He's going to lose that title, no doubt, of being a doctor, I would imagine. And on top of that, I look at it as the beginning of the dominoes falling. Am I being too optimistic?
Well, I hope you're not. I hope you're right. I mean, I don't think your interpretation is unsound. My concern is that there's a distinct possibility, it seems to me, that he's serving as a fall guy. They've told him this could go a lot worse for you, but go ahead and take one for the team with this fraud charge. You'll do a couple of years. You'll get out on good behavior, and hopefully that will satisfy the call for justice on this.
It will not. It will not. I'll stand here right now and say it will not satisfy me.
Well, it won't satisfy me either. One of the things that I try and convey to readers to my readers in my new book, Mind Viruses: America's Irrational Obsessions, is we need to understand the Leviathan of the U.S. government. I mean, our instinct is to root for our favorite guy. If you like Donald Trump and the Republicans, then you're kind of happy when they're in office. If you like the Democrats, you're happy when they're in office. But my argument of the book is that the U.S. federal government, regardless if it's Democrats or Republicans, they're kind of temporarily occupying the offices of elected power. It's the whole rotten edifice that's the problem.
Well, let me take a moment and give you a full minute. When you mention the title again is Mind Viruses: America's Irrational Obsessions. What is considered an irrational obsession right now? Going after Dr. Fauci and those who crippled our nation?
An irrational obsession is the obsession with getting all of mankind injected with this experimental messenger RNA, so-called vaccine. It was just this irrational. Well, maybe it wasn't irrational for the various interests that were pursuing this and were profiting from it. But I mean, a lot of mankind became infected with this sort of contagious idea. Oh, we all need to run out and get this. Even young athletes, even pregnant women, even healthy children that are at no risk of severe illness. Everybody
Right.
needs to get injected with this. This is just crazy.
Well, there's the point right there where it broke the American trust in our health system. And restoring that, I don't know when you're going to be able to, because everyone's going to question it. And you think about it was a scary time, especially if you were a mother pregnant and you're being told, yes, you can go ahead and get a shot for your unborn baby while you're carrying your unborn baby, and yet the drugs were approved only down to age 2. In the last minute, how do we balance that?
Well, we have to recognize when our government is telling us that there's some terrifying boogeyman that's coming to get us. The book shows you how to evaluate these representations, and what I show is almost every single time the boogeyman, the mortal threat, the thing that's going to kill us all, it's either fabricated or it's grossly exaggerated. And we need to learn to recognize when our fears are being used to manipulate us, to drive us in certain directions, to give up our constitutional rights, like the right to free speech, and to line up to get experimental shots. We need to take a deep breath and have a method for evaluating this. And that's what my book does.
All right. Well, I look forward to it. John Leake, author of Mind Viruses, America's Irrational Obsessions, available now, correct?
Yes, sir. You find it on Amazon. They'll put it on your doorstep the next day. And if you like it, please give it a customer review. It really helps.
John, I want to thank you very much for your time and, of course, your work previously with Dr. McCullough for the courage to face COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. And speaking of forcing people to take a shot, you're going to hear in our next hour when Chris Cuomo was still with CNN and challenging Florida Congressman Byron Donalds for saying he's not getting the shot. That was not going to go away. We're going to replay that for you. And as I mentioned, Al Gore in a debate with Rush Limbaugh over climate fears and alarms. They push every fear button they can. And too many people obviously get frightened into the dark because of it. Now, coming up, something else that many people still don't understand and do worry about. They think it's real. Is it? There's a lot of history. The Bermuda Triangle, the story behind the story.
This is 101.9 and 94.1.
Female millennial Trump supporter. I listen to it like every day. Like, seriously, you get it.
News Talk STL.
Hi, this is Congresswoman Ann Wagner from Missouri's 2nd District. I work every day to put more money in your pocket, secure the border, protect our shared Missouri values, and keep our communities safe. Whether it's visiting one of my public events in neighborhoods around the district or by contacting my office, I want to hear from you. If you need help with a federal agency, please contact me at wagner.house.gov.
Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli. We're sitting here with our great friend, Chris Cooper. Hi, Chris.
What's going on, Vic? How are you?
I hear you wrote another book. This one's an e-book. Is that right?
The Business Owner's Playbook for Financial Clarity. So it is a great book for entrepreneurs. It's a very short guide. Give people, business owners, the ability to understand key questions that are important, such as succession planning, legacy planning, getting the IRS out of our pockets, right? Because do you like paying taxes?
I do not.
I don't think anybody likes paying taxes, right? That just makes sense. And then always talking about protection. And then the other thing from a business owner perspective, what is the biggest asset a business owner has? Probably their business itself, right? We need to make sure we understand what the value of that business is as well.
So this new book, I'm sure, is incredibly expensive, right? How much?
No, it's a free resource.
Oh, it's free.
We provide guidance, we provide education because we want to make sure people feel educated and understanding because sometimes you don't know what questions to ask, and we need to make sure we help arm people with information to ask the right question.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Colombo and Company.
A lot of the local political chatter is starting to focus on Amendment 3 as we approach the midterms. We'll dig into it Wednesday with Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd. Plus, we'll have some fun and open Closest Cabin.
Live and local, weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL. The Allman Report, sponsored by Newstedter's Fine Jewelry.
And where down we go, 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 go. Oh, where down we go, 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 go. So where down we go, 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 way down we go.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
You let your feet run wild.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Here's something that should bother you more than it probably does. There's a patch of ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico that doesn't appear on any official map. The US government doesn't recognize it as a real place. And yet, over the past 5 centuries, somewhere around 50 ships and 20 planes have vanished inside it. Hundreds of people gone. No wreckage, no distress calls, nothing. Draw a line from Miami to the island of Bermuda, then down to Puerto Rico and back to Miami. That rough triangle is what we're talking about. Except here's the catch. Nobody agrees on the exact boundaries. Estimates of the total area range from 500,000 square miles to 1.5 million square miles. That's a difference of 1 million square miles, which is, to put it gently, a massive margin of error. The US Navy doesn't recognize the Bermuda Triangle. US Board of Geographic Names doesn't list it. The insurance giant Lloyd's of London doesn't charge higher premiums for ships sailing through it. None of that stopped the rest of the world from becoming completely obsessed with it.
That is from a documentary called List 25 regarding the Bermuda Triangle. Again, it's a loosely defined region in the North Atlantic, bounded by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. And since the mid-20th, it's been the 20th century, it's been the focus of an urban legend regarding what happens when you go in there. And it's not just the Bermuda Triangle, it is also the nearby Sargasso Sea. As you heard, the U.S. government map makers do not officially name or throw in the Bermuda Triangle in that region. Records from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration show no proof ships nor planes vanish more often there than in any other part of the ocean. But yet, the stories persist, going all the way back to the days of Columbus.
You have to start with a man on a boat in 1942 who noticed something very strange about his compass. Columbus was sailing west from Spain, hoping to find a new route to Asia, when he crossed into what we now call the Bermuda Triangle. His logs, compiled shortly after his death and later translated, described a series of strange events. First, his compass started behaving oddly. On September 13, 1942, he wrote that the needles northwested, which meant they were no longer pointing where they should have. A few days later, he reported the sea rising to great heights without any apparent cause. And then, most curiously, he described a strange light on the horizon, something small and flickering like a candle that appeared and vanished. Now, you have to put yourself in 1492 to appreciate what these observations must have felt like. This was a man sailing into truly unknown water. No GPS, no satellite imagery, no weather forecasts, and his compass was lying to him.
And then you end up with more stories that begin to follow. Now, there was a 2013 study by the Worldwide Fund for Nature identifying the 10 most dangerous waters for shipping. The Bermuda Triangle is not listed. But you jump from the days of Christopher Columbus to the 1800s.
In 1881, a cargo ship called the Ellen Austin was making its way from Liverpool to New York through the Sargasso Sea, the body of water that sits right in the middle of where the Bermuda Triangle would eventually be mapped. According to legend, the crew spotted a ship drifting silently with no one on board, just a fully loaded vessel, ghostly quiet, moving with the current. The captain sent some of his men over to sail it back to New York. A storm blew up. The ship separated. When the weather cleared, the second ship was found again, except now it was empty. The men who'd boarded it were gone. A second crew was sent over. The fog rolled back in. The ship vanished completely this time, and nobody ever saw it again. It's a genuinely fantastic story. The only problem is that Lloyd's of London ship registry from 1881 shows the Ellen Austin's voyage as completely uneventful. No detours, no ghost ships, no missing men. The story had evolved significantly in the retelling. That tension between a gripping tale and a boring reality is basically the entire story of the Bermuda Triangle. But to dismiss everything as myth would be a mistake, because some of what happened out there was very real and very devastating.
And that is a fact, devastating to the extent that lives were lost, disappeared, never heard from again. But what actually happened? And is it just the Bermuda Triangle? Then we had the story of the Cyclops carrying 300 plus men. And what happened with the Cyclops?
March 1918. World War I is still grinding on. A U.S. Navy cargo ship called the USS Cyclops, 542 feet long, carrying 309 men and 10,000 tons of manganese ore, left Rio de Janeiro bound for Baltimore. It made an unscheduled stop in Barbados. Then it headed north, and then it was simply gone. To this day, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains the single largest loss of life in U.S. naval history that didn't involve combat. President Woodrow Wilson said at the time, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship." It didn't stop there. In 1941, two of the Cyclops' sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, vanished along nearly the same route, also without explanation. 3 ships, hundreds of men, the same stretch of water. Still no wreckage.
All in the Bermuda Triangle, also known as the Devil's Triangle. But one of the more fascinating stories regarding the Bermuda Triangle involves Flight 19, some U.S. Avenger bombers on a mission, and they go missing. So yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
On December 5th, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers called Sign Flight 19 took off from Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a routine 3-hour training mission. Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, who had amassed some 2,500 hours flying, in addition to the completion of a combat tour in the Pacific Theater during World War II, was the flight leader. The flight included both Navy and Marine airmen, with each Avenger, with one exception, carrying a standard 3-man crew. They were to take off at 14:10 hours and navigate heading east to the Hens and Chicken Shoals for a training bombing exercise. The flight reached the target area at 14:30 and dropped their practice bombs and then banked on their new heading. Suddenly, an unexpected heavy cloud cover and high winds and rain blew in. What has survived from the radio transmission records, it would appear that Taylor became convinced that his Avenger's compass was malfunctioning and that his planes had been flying in the wrong direction. Another pilot flying in the area near the Florida coast, Navy flight instructor Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, received patrol's transmissions. He informed the Naval Air Station of the situation and then responded to Flight 19 asking if they needed assistance. Taylor responded, "Both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down." Another transmission heard was one of the pilots in Flight 19 stating, "I don't know where we are."
That is part of a documentary titled Forgotten History. Now, there are documented compass issues frequently in the Bermuda Triangle incidents. Some theorize there's an unusual local magnetic anomaly that might exist in the area. They were having the same issue with a compass as Christopher Columbus had. And now they are facing a reality.
Flight 19's transmissions soon became weaker as they flew farther out to sea. With their fuel almost exhausted, Taylor was again heard over the radio. "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall." When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together. This would apparently have been Taylor preparing Flight 19 to crash land in the ocean, and right afterward, Flight 19's radio communications ended. Search aircraft were sent to the area to locate the men. One inexplicable factor was why Flight 19 never engaged the rescue radio frequency or their ZBX receivers, their IFF, or identification friend or foe, which the pilots were instructed to do, which would have given them a signal beacon and could have led them towards the Navy's land-based radio towers. The only explanation was that they never heard that transmission. At any rate, they never acknowledged that they received it.
And they continued on their flight, probably headed to the east, farther away from land. Well, of course, obviously the thing you do then, at that point, and now, you send up others to help rescue those who might be in the water at this point.
At 19:30 hours, 2 PBM Martin Mariner flying boats departed Fort Lauderdale on different flight paths to cover a wider search area. One of these planes, PBM-5, Bureau number 59225, took off from Naval Air Station Banana River in Brevard County, Florida, at 19:27 hours, carrying a crew of 13 rescue personnel. About 20 minutes later, that Mariner was tracking Flight 19's last known course correction, also disappeared from radar and lost radio transmission with NAS Fort Lauderdale. Now, with another aircraft missing, confusion reigned at NAS Fort Lauderdale. The following morning, before dawn, the Navy launched over 300 boats and ships to start a wide search pattern. The Martin Mariner, being prone to in-flight fires due to a faulty fuel tank and fuel line design, was believed to have possibly exploded. In fact, a passing merchant ship reported a fireball and then discovered an oil slick on the ocean surface. The search spanned 5 days, covering over 300,000 square miles of ocean without any trace of either the Marines, Navy pilots, or the Avengers. They just vanished.
And there have been deep-sea explorations trying to find any of the Avengers. To date, none of them have been found. They might have been even farther east than what was first believed. But the fact that the fire capability or the incident could have happened on one of the rescue planes, it was in the Bermuda Triangle. Did that add to it? Well, those who believe in all of this, the paranormal, they certainly believe supernatural concepts explain all of these events. Some estimate there's a parallel universe inside the Bermuda Triangle. Others attribute it to UFOs. Charles Berlitz, author of various books on UFOs, lists several theories attributing the loss in the triangle to UFOs or other unexplained forces. But most of it obviously always comes down to, in many cases, human error, either as a pilot or navigator on a ship. But if you have your magnetic compass that is not correctly reacting, that is a human error, but it's also tied to you relying on an instrument which you would trust. And the stories and the allegations continue. There have been numerous cases. They've had cases all the way back to the dates we have given you, and they've had others. And in fact, in 1977, the science fiction drama film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you remember that movie? They connect the loss of one of those ships to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle, and apparently discovered in the Gobi Desert, put there by extraterrestrial forces. But then there was something else that was found and documented. How would this affect ships is one understanding, but planes?
Back aboard Go America, shipwreck investigator Dan Taylor believes the key to the Triangle mystery is a bizarre subsea anomaly: methane bubbles. Naturally occurring gas seeps are not uncommon, but Dan's seen evidence that in the Bermuda Triangle, they can be lethal.
On one of our surveys, we discovered huge crater-like formations. We We had no idea what these things were. The largest one was 600 meters across.
There is growing scientific consensus that when subsea methane deposits explode, they can create a massive bubble with the potential to displace water and sink ships.
A 600-meter gas hydrate bubble would create a bubble on the surface of the ocean that's miles wide. If you were a vessel and a bubble burst underneath you, then you would simply fall off the planet into the abyss and the water would swallow you.
Some even speculate they can create lethal turbulence and down aircraft.
The lethal turbulence suggestion would sound extremely strange, except there is something known with thunderstorms as downdraft, wind shear. Whether that can be connected to the gas bubbles, that's still not clear. We also had a Douglas DC-3 passenger plane disappear on a flight from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Miami in 1948. No trace of that plane or the 32 on board ever found. And then you had in August 1963 a pair of U.S. Air Force KC-135 tankers reportedly colliding, crashing into the Atlantic, and again inside the Bermuda Triangle. Coincidence or just the location happened to be that same area? You can have your theories, and many still will, and they will not accept any of the facts presented. And you can always question some of the facts because do you really know, or you just want to tell us that's the story? Well, now you know the story behind the story of the Bermuda Triangle. Tomorrow we'll be back here at noon, and we'll have another story behind the story. 1975, the Lake Superior sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's tomorrow's story behind the story. Second hour still to come, including Rush Limbaugh. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
Hey, it's Vic. If you have a tree that you think is dead, you can get Roots Plus to remove it for you. Or if you think the tree is savable, or if Roots Plus thinks it's savable, they can save your tree and you keep your cash. Call them and find out what that's all about at 314-440-3662. The crews are great. They get things done. They removed the tree for me, and they did expert work, and I definitely will put my name on their company. So save the tree with Roots Plus LLC. RootsPlusLLC.com.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with this free call. 800-524-1641. 800-524-1641. 800-524-1641. That's 800-524-1641.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
News this hour at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Tuesday's primary results in Florida produced some big victories for President Trump.
Representative Byron Donalds has won the Republican nomination for Florida governor and will face former Congressman David Jolly, who won the Democratic nomination for the November contest to replace term-limited Governor Ron DeSantis. Meanwhile, progressive state representative Angie Nixon's won the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate. She'll face interim Senator Ashley Moody, a political appointee who won the Republican nomination. The special elections to fill the final 2 years of now Secretary of State Marco Rubio's term. And in House primaries, longtime Democratic Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz defeated former Representative Sheila Cherfilus McCormick and others in a redrawn South Florida district. I'm Ben Thomas.
The scandal over the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has broadened now as a former senior advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci pleads guilty to his role in concealing federal COVID records.
The records have to do with research into the origins of the COVID pandemic. Dr. David Morin's scheduled to be sentenced November 12th by a Maryland federal judge. He pleaded guilty to conspiring to defraud the U.S. government by using his private email account to intentionally circumvent public records laws while employed at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases under Fauci. Rich Thomason reporting.
Amazon says it plans to offer drone delivery service to millions more people by the end of the year. Lisa Dwyer.
The company plans to expand their airborne shipping to suburban areas in nearly 500 U.S. cities, intensifying the battle between Amazon and Walmart to provide customers with the fastest delivery times. Amazon says that customers could receive drone deliveries of packages up to 5 pounds in as fast as 30 minutes. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
More of these stories at Town Hall.
Are you tired of feeling lousy? Maybe you had a scare at your last checkup or just walking hurts? When enough is enough, call PhD Weight Loss. When I had enough 4 years and 53 pounds ago, I knew I couldn't do it alone. I'm Mike Gallagher for PhD Weight Loss. Best phone call I ever made. They were right with me. They still are today. Right now, mention Mike. You'll get 2 free weeks added to the program, and they'll pay for the cost of your food. $1,500 value. Call 864-644-1900, 864-644-1900, or visit myphdweightloss.com.
Maybe this is you too. There is enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It's amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. And yeah, you could save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Here's the number. They're easy to talk to. 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Window World of St. Louis. For replacement windows, doors, and siding, call 800-GET-WINDOWS. That's 800-GET-WINDOWS. From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
Still a chance of a shower or even a thunderstorm as we go through the afternoon and the evening hours, particularly south of St. Louis, where we could see a stronger storm. High temperatures today making it into the low to mid 80s, and we are looking for lows tonight in the upper 60s to near 70 degrees. Could see an isolated shower tomorrow morning, but generally partly cloudy skies and that high temperature in the mid 80s, and very little rain expected over the weekend. In the First Alert Weather Center, I'm KMOV meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Mark your calendar for the annual Leadership for America Dinner 2026, Friday, September 25th at the St. Charles Convention Center Grand Ballroom. Join News Talk STL for an unforgettable evening featuring keynote speaker Nick Shirley, the independent journalist who exposed the alleged fraud in Minneapolis, plus additional speakers and guests. Dinner's included, so come hungry for great food and bold ideas. For tickets and more information, visit newstalkstl.com. You never know who you'll run into at Sugar Creek Golf Course. Stop by the News Talk VIP Lounge inside the Sugar Creek Clubhouse and catch familiar faces like Jamie Allman, Mike Ferguson, Tim Jones, Nick Schroer, and more from the News Talk STL team. Grab a cold drink, say hello, and take in the atmosphere. And before you leave, swing by the Pro Shop to pick up your official News Talk STL polo. The Sugar Creek Pro Shop is the only place you can get one. It's all happening at Sugar Creek, so don't miss it.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 110, was formed in 1933 and from the beginning has strived for progress and the well-being of others. The laborers of Local 110 are hardworking men and women who take pride in their great work. They are the fastest-growing union of construction workers and one of the most effective unions representing plants and quarries. Laborers Local 110 has the best medical benefits, pension, education, and heavy construction training in the market. Visit lu110.com and start your future today.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
New York City faces a budget crisis of a historic magnitude. We inherited a deficit larger than any since the Great Recession. Years of mismanagement and chronic underbudgeting, alongside a structural imbalance between what New York City sends to the state and what we receive in return, have taken a toll. We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue, and we need a structural reset in our relationship with the state. That is the only way to meet our legal obligation to pass a balanced budget, and to do so without imposing a financial burden onto the backs of working people. I'm glad to partner with Speaker Menon as we call upon Albany and deliver a balanced budget. Together, we are extending the executive budget deadline from this coming Friday until May 12th, because a crisis of this scale cannot be solved without state action. I want to be clear. We are not simply asking others to act. New York City is doing our part.
No, you're not.
We are committed to governing with the fiscal responsibility this moment demands.
No, you're not.
Speaker Menon and I have already identified meaningful savings, and we will continue that work carefully, deliberately, and without cutting the services that New Yorkers rely on.
There
but
you
we cannot do it alone.
Gee
That is why we are standing together this morning, to underscore what is at stake and to call on Albany to deliver additional revenue.
Albany, send money. Governor Hochul, send money to New York City. There you have New York City Mayor Mama Dami. I know that's not correct, but I don't really care. He knew what the situation was with the New York City budget when he was running, and he was promising all these free things, free transportation, which he could not actually achieve anyway. And we're going to open up grocery store. Yes, they opened up a grocery store in each of the 5 boroughs. They're spending money to open grocery stores, and they're already in the hole. Did you ever see the movie The Money Pit? Talking about buying a home and you have to fix this, you fix that, and you just keep pouring more and more money into it, and nothing is ever fixed correctly. That is New York City. And you've got this radical candidate, which convinced others to vote for him. Not just a Muslim, but an Islamist. There is a difference. Just like I always say, not every Muslim is a jihadist, but every jihadist is a Muslim. And now Mayor Mamdani, is in charge and realizing, well, we need help, and we're doing everything we can, and we're going to push our budget back because we can't meet the current obligations. Send us more money. See, that is exactly the breaking point for every push for Marxism, communism. And he claims, well, I'm just a socialist. And he's got a lot of Democrat socialists around him that he's endorsed. These people are absolutely dangerous. Let me give you an example very quickly. You heard in the news just a moment ago, and if not, we reported it in our first hour today. The Florida DSA Senate candidate, Angie Nixon, ended up winning. And she is quoting a Marxist cop killer and calling for drag queen shows, saying they are wholesome for children. Is that who you want leading not just your party, but standing up for, quote, American values? No, of course it's not. Hey, welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. Why am I here? Where's Jamie? Jamie's taking a well-deserved break, and I'm glad for him to do it. And I'm more than glad to be here for you today and again Thursday and Friday with Larry Connors USA, where you always get news, analysis, commentary, and education. Education. That happens in every hour. You leave each hour with more information than you had when we began. Did you miss our first hour? Oh, shame on you, but I know you can't be with us all the time. That's why everything we do goes up as a podcast at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. And reminding you when we're on the air like we are right now, you can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Rumble or Facebook. And I remind you again, wherever you are, you can hear us. Even if you're beyond the signals that we're allowed to extend, our two great FM signals, the FCC puts restrictions on it. But my daughter listens down in Florida using the app on her phone. You download the Newstalk STL app on your phone, it becomes your radio. She listens from there. I've got folks in Europe, friends in Europe that listen to Larry Connors USA when we're normally on 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening. But now, of course, at this hour, right now, glad to have you with us. In the meantime, Treasury Secretary Bassett basically, as one said, detonating a nuclear truth bomb after they've been bearing spending forever and ever. Secretary Bassett.
And we know what has happened here, but I think as people feel the turn, which they should be now, then there is light at the end of the tunnel. Things are getting better. We're seeing construction jobs picking up. We're seeing manufacturing jobs picking up. The unemployment rate dropped. We are seeing the big component of the workforce, the mid-20s to mid-50s, is very stable. And Rob, the other important thing too is these jobs are going to Americans. Like, we have seen over 2 million jobs created for Americans, and we've seen over 1 million illegals leave the workforce. And guess what? The laws of supply and demand still work. When you take the illegals out of the workforce, working class wages go up. When you send them back home, rents go down.
They go back home, and the rents go down. Wages go up. This is what the left has been hiding all this time because they're so anxious to have illegals in our country to get them into voting booths. I told you yesterday how one man posing as a Muslim, dressed in full garb, led 7 other people into a polling booth in Minnesota and said they don't have any ID. Do they need an ID to vote? No, they don't need an ID. If you can vouch for them, well, I will vouch for them. And he was allowed to vouch for 7 or 8 others so they could vote as if they were legal to vote. This is invading our country. This is a true invasion. And in fact, later in this hour, you need to make sure you know your enemy. Montana Senator Sheehy made some remarks on the floor. And I will tell you right now, it's going to be painful to listen to. But if you don't know your enemy, you don't know how to deal with them, and you do not recognize to the lengths they will go to destroy you, our nation, Western civilization. And, of course, we've had numerous so-called elite schools, elite learning locations, indoctrination centers. Brett Baer, Fox News, points out what the War Department is now doing.
The War Department is ordering 30 domestic academic institutions to audit their research and financial ties with foreign entities or risk losing further funding. The list includes several prestigious schools such as Harvard, Duke, Johns Hopkins, and MIT. The institutions have until the end of the month to report conclusions and next steps.
So there we have it. Carnegie Mellon, $1 billion in foreign gifts and contracts. MIT, $1 billion. Stanford, less than that, $775 million. They just couldn't get more. Even Harvard, only $324 million. But when you total everything they've received from foreign adversaries, basically, not just those who work with us, since 1886 through 2025, Harvard has collected $4 billion. Carnegie Mellon just under that. MIT, Cornell, UPenn, all of them. Oh, by the way, UPenn, don't forget, Joe Biden's alumni. Total excess of all schools, roughly $67 to $70 billion. And now they're going to lose federal funding if they don't stop it, and we want a full audit of every piece of money they got. In the meantime, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Ratcliffe, laid a document in front of President Trump to sign.
Sir, your administration has made it a priority both to end lawfare and the weaponization of government, and also to hold those who have engaged in lawfare accountable. One of the law firms that has been involved in that is called Perkins Coie. That's also a law firm that has engaged in unlawful DEI practices. This executive order will suspend security.
And I've watched it take place.
This executive order will suspend security clearances and access to certain federal resources for that law firm, and also launch a holistic review of unlawful DEI practices at some of the nation's largest law firms.
Good.
This is an absolute honor to sign. What they've done is it's just terrible. It's weaponization. You could say weaponization against a political opponent, and it should never be allowed to happen again. And you're looking at about 15 different firms?
That or more, sir, yes.
That or more. Again, that's CIA Director Ratcliffe saying all the world now can see the truth. Brennan, Clapper, Comey manipulated intel, silenced career professionals, all to get Trump. And he added that was Obama, Comey, Clapper, Brennan deciding we're going to screw Trump. We're going to create this, and we're going to put in the assessment in such a way that nobody can question it. So they stamped it as Russian collusion and then classified it so nobody could see it. That is reported by the New York Post, Miranda Devine. CIA Director Ratcliffe says you look for a comparison, simply look at the Hunter Biden laptop. It's the same people in the Hunter Biden case. All to lie to win the election. But now there's an accountability, supposedly, for all these people. And that law firm, Perkins Coie, accused of falsifying evidence, the single greatest information campaign in U.S. history, all to overthrow a sitting president in 2017, and again the overthrow in 2020. And don't forget Christopher Wray, FBI director, involved. Perkins Coie, of course, was the attorney firm for Hillary. Just coinky-dinky. All right, an update on Iraq. We're seeing that President Trump is looking to put even more pressure on them, also announcing he'll be having a meeting with Kim Jong-il soon. When exactly, still to be determined. But on Iraq, Senator Jack King, a rather retired General Jack King, says the pressure is there, but we also know they are ramping up at their side.
The American people here. So if they can demonstrate, as we get closer to the midterms, that the war isn't being managed properly because Iran is taking offensive action, then they believe, in their minds, there's a good chance that the Democrats will take control and maybe stop funding the war. Is kind of where they're coming from. I don't like to get into politics, but I'm thinking through where they are. And a number of things have emboldened them, Larry. Number one, and you mentioned it, we went to a ceasefire on April the 7th because the Iranians were throwing a fig leaf out there that we would negotiate with the Americans over the Straits of Hormuz. Well, that hasn't happened successfully, but nonetheless, they got the ceasefire. And that emboldened them. The second thing is interesting is because they threatened allies and partners, Gulf oil states, oil and gas infrastructure, and they damaged some of it. And they threatened to do more of it if the United States and Israel return to major combat operations.
And the Wall Street Journal reported yesterday what we have known and suspected. During the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, when supposedly there was a ceasefire, they weren't doing nothing. They were actively rebuilding, reinforcing, bringing in more weapons, and in many cases with the help of Putin and Russia. And, of course, the help from the Chinese. Rebecca Henricks with the Hoover Institute.
This is something that's really hard for Americans to understand because we think that people basically want the kinds of things that we want, at least maybe want peace and prosperity and, mind our own business and take care of our families. And if you can just give the Iranians even, enough cash that maybe they'll just get busy rebuilding their own country. And that's just not what the IRGC wants, Brian. I mean, the IRGC are the ones that are in control. Their identity is completely tied up in fighting the West, in exporting Shia Islamism. I mean, that's not something that they just say for control. They actually believe it.
They actually believe it. But we, Americans, have been kind of, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. If we give them some concessions, that they will fall in line and everything will be peaceful. Maybe not exactly kumbaya around the fireplace, but we will be at ease, maybe. But they don't think that way. They're thinking every day, every moment, every single second, how we can destroy you, Western civilization. In the meantime, the United Arab Emirates suspending all trade and commercial exchange, any financial transactions with Iran, because Iran has been firing missiles toward, again, maritime traffic. These guys are going to continue to push everything they can. You give them 1 inch, they are going to take the mile or more. American thinking has to be rethought. You need to know the enemy. Now, you're going to hear in the next segment from Montana Senator Tim Sheehy, junior U.S. Senator from Montana. Youngest Republican U.S. Senator, second youngest U.S. Senator. He was a Navy SEAL. He knows the enemy. He has escorted dignified transfer of some of his own buddies under flag-draped coffins, bringing them back to the States. I will tell you now, it's going to be disturbing for some of you to hear, but it's imperative that you do. It's still to come with Larry Connors USA. Don't go anywhere. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
There's always something to celebrate in Augusta, Missouri, just 1 hour from St. Louis. Every season brings festivals and special events you won't want to miss. Hop the free trolley to 10 wineries in America's first wine district. Bike the Katy Trail and explore historic small-town charm. Make Augusta your next getaway. Find events and cozy B&Bs at visitaugusta-chamber.org.
Coming soon, the return of the Defiance Roadhouse. Located on Highway 94 along the Missouri River, this long-standing fixture is known for its biker-friendly atmosphere, live music, and decades as a beloved community gathering place. Rev your engines and stand by for the grand opening, early September. The Roadhouse is back.
Fall means the return of Mizzou football. And this year promises another great season of SEC action. There's no better place to catch every game than Harpo's in Chesterfield. With its excellent sports bar atmosphere and the best patio in West County, Harpo's is your Tiger headquarters. Harpo'sSTL.com.
Hi, it's Ken Williams, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the Capistrami. You've got hot pastrami, melty Swiss cheese, crunchy coleslaw, and zesty Russian dressing. What else do you need? I love Capriati's, and you will too. On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill, and now in Creve Coeur on Olive, just 1 mile west of 270.
Calling all Patriots. Join the St. Louis County Republicans for the annual Lincoln Reagan Day Dinner, Saturday, September 19th at River City Casino. Our keynote speaker, Newsmax personality, Rob Carson. Enjoy a full night of fun and information alongside state and local officials and candidates. It's an evening you won't want to miss. Dinner and program, just $75. For tickets, email Renee Artman at hotmail.com or call 314-398-6667.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
The Allman Report, sponsored by Santino's Cigar Bar in Imperial.
Not a yes, sir, not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold, have a seat in the foyer. Take a number. I was lightning before the thunder. Thunder, 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 thunder.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it, they actually do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago. Took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world. And that is exactly what they have been doing. They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done.
The words of Montana Senator Tim Sheehy, U.S. Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and he knows what he's speaking because I said he has had the obligation, the duty, and the mission to bring back some of his fellow troops for a dignified transfer of their bodies, bringing them back to the nation, bringing them home in flag-draped coffins. And he's pointing out to you, these people inside the Islamic reign, the Islamic, oh, I got a word. I'm going to bite my lip. I'm going to bite it because if I say it, we'll probably have the FCC all over us. But you fill in the blank. And he's right. They think all the time about killing you. And we cannot simply accept that they are like us because these folks are not like you. Let me just bring it down to a little closer for you. Are you anything like the DSA candidate who won her primary in Florida yesterday? Who claims that drag shows are just great for kids. Are you anything like Abdul Assad, the Michigan Senate candidate, who says basically, well, I'm just like Jesus. You're nowhere near Jesus. They're trying to push buttons that they think will resonate with you. I can recall decades ago, and I'm talking about probably 40 plus years ago, at my church, Central Presbyterian in Clayton. Been going to church there for years, just before our first daughter was born. Still a member. I will admit, not at service as often as I should be. And when I do, I simply enter at the back, sit quietly, and then leave. But at the time I joined, there was a pastor, Andrew Jumper, that many will probably know by name. And I remember he had made a trip to the Holy Land. And he came back and his first sermon was, we need to wake up. We need to wake up. There are Islamists building and planning to come to our nation and basically occupy, invade our nation. And at the time, I honestly will tell you, I thought, why are you preaching so much against people of another religion? Because the Muslims I know were not anything like what he was describing. But the movement was already afoot. And I've also said, watch what happens in Europe. It will then replicate here, and it has. It is not simply a new philosophy. It's trying to corrupt, let me correct that, trying to destroy your religion, you, and Western civilization. Once again, the words of Montana Senator Sheehy.
They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera. They celebrate it. They honor those people who do disgusting things that we would put in jail for the rest of their lives in this country. And they do it for fun, and they pay them money to do it, and they're heroes to that nation. They've done it to friends of mine. They've done it to families who've been in this chamber. And the fact that we sit here and listen to elected officials of this country defend these lunatics who want us all dead. They want all of you dead. They want all of us dead. They don't want us to disappear with a snap of a finger. They want us to be raped, burned alive, and cut into pieces. Watch the video from October 7th. That's what they want to happen from Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Miami. They want this country turned into a burning husk of its former self. And you don't have to theorize that. That's what they do. From the 1983 barracks bombing, where 280 Marines were vaporized in a morning, from USS Cole to the Achille Laurel to every terrorist attack, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths.
You could almost hear his voice breaking as he was recounting what he knows has been done to his fellow soldiers in the SEALs, our Rangers, our other military units. When he mentioned the Beirut bombing, I immediately flashed back to that Sunday morning when word broke of this suicide bombing at the U.S. barracks in Beirut. Mostly Marines. I was in TV news at that point. But that Sunday morning, as we're going to church and the news is still developing, I didn't know if Pastor Jumper was aware of it, so I went up and talked to him just briefly before he began the service, letting him know. And just by gauging his face, it was the first time he'd heard it, and in shock. And immediately began to relate to the congregation and ask for prayer. And in the news station at the time, we were anxiously trying to make contact with anybody who might have relatives or friends that might have been in that barracks. There were calls coming in. In some cases, we traced them down, and it turned out that their friend or family member was not in the barracks at the time, or might have been on the grounds but had left. But, of course, the military towns like Camp Pendleton and Paris Island area, they definitely knew they had lost many that had been in their community. And once again, Senator Sheehy.
Not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him. Love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back. For 47 years, our troops and our families have been absorbing attack after attack after attack all over the world. And their radical ideology does not stop at the Persian Gulf. It doesn't stop at Tel Aviv. They want to do this everywhere. It's a global radical ideology. And we've been fighting it for half a century. We didn't start this war. We did not, but we will finish it. And forever wars are not popular with anybody these days. Both sides there love to attack our forever wars. And I can promise you, being someone overseas wearing the uniform, when you're fighting for your country, you don't care what parties in office, but you're fighting to defend your country. And you turn on the news and see your elected officials stabbing you in the back, telling you that you're failing, that you've failed every goal of the war, is what I just heard. Last time I checked, we've wiped these bastards out. An occasional missile strike and boats in the Straits, that's not military strength. Those are the flailings of a failing empire. Those are the flailings of a nation in collapse because they deserve it.
And we're going to continue. Trump is saying we might return to negotiations at some point. He's trying to keep the olive branch available. But he's not going to fall for any tricks. In the meantime, Iran is stating, yes, the U.S. is seeking quickly an exit from the region. And they're pushing you, the American voter, because they think this should be on your mind when you're in the voting booth. You should be worried about a forever war that Trump has put you into. You should be worried, regardless of you being Republican, Democrat, conservative, independent, Trump lover or hater, you should be worried that Sharia law and Islamists will take over you, your family, your school, your church, and you will be evaporated. Before we wrap up this hour, we're going to flash back in time to a little debate between Rush Limbaugh and Al Gore over climate change. And we also have more than that for you. Still to come. Stand by, please.
Hungry at midnight? Craving a home-cooked breakfast at noon? At Gingham's Homestyle Restaurant, we've got ya 24 hours a day. For 35 years, folks have been coming back for our famous fried chicken, bone-in catfish, country fried steak, slow-cooked pot roast, scratch-made pancakes, or a slice of homemade pie. Daily specials and a loyalty rewards program that actually pays off. There's always a reason to come back to Gingham's Restaurant in St. Charles. Skip the wait. Join our waitlist on Yelp or at ginghamsrestaurant.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on NewsTalkSTL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Whatever the season, you always have a great reason to reach out to Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com for all your tree care needs and so much more. Tim Jones here to remind you Hanson's is your one-stop shop for expert insured tree care, amazing organic mulch, green resource recycling, land clearing, and so much more. Hanson services the entire St. Louis metro, and they also provide their full array of services in and around the Lake of the Ozarks. From tree care to storm cleanup to awesome mulch and more, check out Hanson's at hansonstree.com. That's hansonstree.com.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Today, the story behind the story, the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL. The Allman Report, sponsored by the Walner Home Selling Team.
Come with me now. Come with me now. Go with me now. I'll take you now. Go with me now. I'll show you how. Go with me now. I'll take you now.
This is Larry Connors USA.
Larry
Connors USA.
Just a moment ago, our colleague Senator Hirono said there's a lot more to say, and indeed she's right. And in fact, I want to go back to her comments. She began by saying we have a long history of racial discrimination in this country. That's undoubtedly correct. And then she said, quote, we had poll taxes, we had literacy tests, we even had tests of how many jelly beans are in a jar. Mr. Chamberlain, when Senator Hirono says we had poll taxes, I want to ask you who we is, and in particular, what party was it that implemented poll taxes in the South?
I mean, I don't want to necessarily speak in every single case, but I'm pretty confident it was mostly the Democrats.
Yep.
And what party was it that put literacy tests in place in the South?
Same answer, mostly the Democrats.
And what party was it that had tests like how many jelly beans are in a bottle?
The Democrats.
Tell me, what party were the founders of the Ku Klux Klan from?
I'm pretty sure that was the Democrats.
Indeed. In fact, Nathan Bedford Forrest, the founder of the Klan, was a delegate to the 1860 Democrat National Convention.
But that was then, and that's not the Democrat Party of today. And that is true. It is not the Democrat Party of today. But when the Democrats like to throw out the race word, they do not want you to go back into history and see their party's involvement in racial division. They had poll taxes across the South. First of all, if you were going to vote, you had to be a landowner. Okay, they got around that. Okay, we'll impose you must pay money for a right to vote. If you don't have the money, you can't vote. Oh, and then you also have to be actually able to read. And you can't just sign an X. You have to be able to write your name. Every hurdle possible they kept putting in front of blacks having the opportunity to vote. That was the Democrat Party. And yes, the Democrat Party and its leadership founded the KKK. Does that mean every Democrat was a racist? No, it doesn't. And in fact, it points primarily at the Democrats of the South, plantation areas, cotton fields. And I know I grew up in that area. There were blue Democrats, sometimes called blue dog Democrats. But the Democrats of that time are different than the Democrats of today. And they're certainly way different than the Democrat Socialists of America who are parading around saying, we're here to save you. I don't need you to save me. If you're here to actually save America and help Americans more than illegals, then we might have a relationship. I have relatives. Most have passed away, but they had no trouble with throwing the N-word around. It was like dropping pennies to them. And I do recall telling one of them, once I had my children, if you ever want me to bring my children to your house again, you will not say that word in their presence. And yes, they were Democrats at that point. Senator Cruz continued on his analogy of pointing out what the Democrat Party was built on, and now they want you to ignore the history.
What party wrote the Jim Crow laws in the South?
The Democrats.
On this side of the aisle were members of the Republican Party. Who was the first Republican president?
Abraham Lincoln.
The Republican Party was literally founded to oppose slavery. We came into existence because slavery was a grotesque evil, and it was President Lincoln, the first Republican president, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, who won the Civil War, and that resulted in the freeing of the slaves and the passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. By the way, fast forward to the Civil Rights era. Bull Connor, one of the most noxiously racist politicians. What party was he from?
He was a Democrat.
The Democrats, for the entire history of their party, have been a party based on racial discrimination. They affirmatively embrace it. They support it.
And they have paid for it. And now they're quick to call and pull out the race card if they think it works to their advantage. And they've done it repeatedly. And now many are still insisting the SAVE Act to protect the integrity of our elections is racist. It's going to disenfranchise blacks. If that were true, riddle me this. How is it Congressman Byron Donalds in Florida won the gubernatorial primary in the race for governor? You do know he's a black man. And you do imagine, I'm sure, that many of the votes and support he is getting is coming from the black community. That's because the black community is no longer a monolithic block that the Democrats can count on to vote Democrat in every election. We don't need you until Election Day, then we'll come around and we'll bus you to the polls. You get to vote, and we'll take you back home to the urban plantation, and we'll come back and get you the next election. Otherwise, they consider you dumb and ignorant and incapable of getting a voter's ID. How slimy is that? Larry, it's just politics. Yeah, but politics that you don't want to be associated with or shouldn't be. And, of course, don't forget what we were put through in our nation during COVID, how they continued to push and pressure on you. You've got to follow these rules. You've got to stand 7 paces apart. And Dr. Fake Fauci, science, said follow the science, but he was not doing it. He was inviting Jake Tapper to his home for dinner, not once but twice, while telling you probably need to cancel Thanksgiving dinner at your house. You could be a COVID spreader if you have that. And the other point that I want to drive home, I've yet to hear Jake Tapper come out and talk about having dinner with Dr. Fauci during the COVID lockdown. Any credibility he might have, and that's suspicious at the very best, any credibility he might have of being a journalist falls apart right there. Now, if I'd been invited to Dr. Fauci's house during the COVID breakdown, I will make it clear to you, I would have gone. I would have gone and I would have talked to him, and I'd said, why are you locking everybody down? Hurting businesses, shutting people down, and telling kids they can't even go to school and insisting later they must get a shot. I don't think it'd been a very good dinner. I probably wouldn't have been able to stay around for dessert. But I do know I'd walked away with a story to tell that while he's telling you do not even have a family gathering, he's inviting people to his house. I want to go back in time at one point when Chris Cuomo was with CNN before they dumped him. And remember, he said, I had to go into quarantine in my own home. And yet he was caught on video out roaming around a piece of property he was checking on. And then came the day he came up from the basement. The cameras were there. He said, it's good to be out of quarantine. He's living in his house in the basement. This is not a dungeon. He had full TV, bar, food, everything else. So he was questioning Congress at that time, was still Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, now the gubernatorial candidate, Republican candidate for governor. He was questioning him about Donalds not wanting to follow COVID rules.
An aspect of vaccine hesitancy is politics, especially in your state. Don't Fauci, Florida. We all know that was about. Do you feel responsible for spreading a message where I'm not going to take it because I don't care what Biden wants? Byron Donald's not going to take it because he doesn't care what Biden wants. You think that's a good message for people to hear?
I chose not to get vaccinated because I chose not to get vaccinated. I already had COVID-19 once. I'm 42 years old. I'm in very good health. I actually get checkups regularly and do all those things. That's a personal decision for myself. Members of my family, my wife, my 3 kids, they've all had COVID. They're not getting vaccinated. They're all healthy. That is a decision they've chosen to make.
All right. Freedom isn't just defined as the bold and ability to be strong and wrong. It's about doing the right thing, the best thing.
Go get the vaccine. I fully promote you doing that.
But if you
But
don't
at the same
get
time,
it,
if
then
there are
other
Americans
people
who
are
don't want to
vulnerable
get
to
it,
you.
they
Listen,
shouldn't be forced to do so.
Nobody, but see, that's the thing. It's a false choice. This isn't about you won't force
It's
me.
not a false choice.
It is.
That's actually the accurate choice, Chris.
It's not an accurate choice. Nobody's forcing anybody.
The hell they weren't. They certainly were. And they were threatening to discharge, and did, members of our military because they did not want to get the shots. Navy SEALs, I don't think you can get more perfect, healthy specimens than a Navy SEAL. And the kids, they didn't want you on social media talking about any other options. I was not going to get a COVID shot. I was riding with my Harley riders on Sundays, and my daughter said, "Are you still going in and out of these bars on Sundays?" I said, "Yeah, we are." Said, "Anybody wearing a mask?" I said, "No, nobody in a Harley bar, a motorcycle bar, is going to wear a mask." They said, "Well, you got to promise us you'll get the shot." So I got the shot only because I made that promise to my children. And I got COVID. I got the booster. And I got COVID again. And I probably had it 2 or 3 times since. So Cuomo continued to push a lie in the face of Congressman Donalds. He does not back down.
You're trying to push it to where people have to be forced, and you're seeing it as a position of strength and advantage.
You're the one that's pushing it, not me. I'm not trying to
There's
push
no
it.
question that you're not pushing the vaccine. Everybody should know that about you, Byron Donald. You are not telling people to get vaccinated. You are not pushing it. You are not saying it's the right choice. You're saying you're not doing it and your family's not doing it, and you're leaving out of the equation that you can make other people sick as if that doesn't matter. Do you have the right? Of course, nobody's debating that except you guys as a false choice. What I'm saying is it right to do it? Have you spoken to a doctor? You're supposed to be a leader. Have you talked to the CDC and the people who are in Florida at the Department of Health about whether or not they think you made a good choice? Because if your answer is just then, well, I don't care what they say, this is me, I'm an American, that is being dumb as a proxy for being bold.
And that is Chris Cuomo, whose brother Andrew was governor of New York, ordering nursing homes to accept people that they'd gone to the hospital with COVID to take them back into the nursing home. Basically, a death camp. And I mentioned earlier, and our guest got into this in great detail. You definitely want to pull up the first hour and hear it again. Dr. David Moran's has admitted pleading guilty to concealing federal records related to research on the origins of COVID-19. I think that's the beginning of the dominoes to fall. He's to be sentenced November the 12th. He might get off with 2 years. That might be part of the plea agreement if he would plead. I don't know. But I want to see where it goes, and I want more accountability. And I've often asked how many inside Fauci's circle want to go to jail for him. Dr. Moran's apparently willing to do a couple of years. Hopefully that's all he gets, in his opinion. All right, let's flash back on another topic that obviously, again, it doesn't have to be a red-blue Republican-Democrat issue, but the other side wants to make it that way because they want to force everything they believe upon you. Flashback ABC Nightline, Ted Koppel, Al Gore, and kind of a debate with Rush Limbaugh on the immediate, imminent threat of climate disaster.
Got local environmental problems, regional problems like acid rain. Now we've got a whole new category of global or strategic problems, which include the hole in the ozone layer, which now could appear above the United States, global climate change, the destruction of the rainforests at a rate that means they'll be totally gone in another few decades unless we stop, the pollution of the oceans and the atmosphere, and the like. These represent brand new challenges that call for a new kind of response.
That, again, was Al Gore talking about this is what we need to be doing. And, of course, he got very rich off of that. That was in 1992. Would you say Gore sounds like a fool? Well, if you didn't think so then you watch him come up with an inconvenient truth, which was another lie, but he made money on movies and books. He was addressing at that time on the Ted Koppel show Rush Limbaugh, who obviously had a reaction.
I don't think that there's anything conclusive about what Senator Gore said, with all due respect. I think, for example, there is no ozone hole over the United States. And if we want to get into the detailed discussion of ozone depletion, we can. But I think, Ted, that there is not a crisis. See, this is the problem I have. I don't think the Earth is fragile. I don't think the ecology is fragilely balanced. And I think that the doomsday industry that is typified by members of the Hollywood acting community who say we've only got 10 years left to save our planet, we've got to act now. There's no way, if what these people say is true, that we can solve these problems in 10 years anyway. It's budget time in Washington. NASA's being cut. And I think that this fright and doom scenario is designed to frighten people. Everything in this country today seems to be a crisis. We can't do anything without it being having to face it as a crisis. We don't have any time to think about it. There are as many scientists, maybe even more, on the opposite side of all of these doomsday predictions.
Now, again, Rush Limbaugh had the pulse of America. He knew, they're trying to frighten you and to scare you. Don't buy it. And once again, the Rush and Gore exchange on Nightline.
There are as many scientists, maybe even more, on the opposite side of all of these doomsday predictions. And I think that they need to be listened to. Yeah, oh, yes, there are.
That's not true. If I can jump in there, Ted, where the ozone hole is concerned, for example, the linkage between these chemicals, chlorofluorocarbons, and the ozone hole is established. There may be 1/100th of 1% of the scientific community that disputes it.
Oh, no. It's far more than that. Ted, that the environmental movement, as fueled by the militants who lead it, I think is the new home of socialism.
The ozone hole is threatening to open up above North America, above Kennebunkport, and still we're not reacting.
No, the rich elite are still buying property in Kennebunkport. And how do you explain Obama later buying an estate in Martha's Vineyard, just 150 miles or so from Kennebunkport? Don't you think that would be underwater? And keep in mind, this was 1992, and they were saying, in 10 years. You want to do the ciphering from 1992 to 2026? Be my guest. Oh, and while you're adding up numbers and contemplating what else you should put into the equation, Bill Clinton today turned 80 years old. You want to send him a birthday card? Send him best wishes? Look, I don't like demonizing the other side on politics in particular. Obviously not one of my favorite presidents by any stretch of the imagination, nor Hillary. But I don't wish them ill. I do wish the best for you, and I thank you for listening to this edition of Larry Connor's USA. We'll be back here again at noon tomorrow. Larry Connor's USA. You're always going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. Thank you again. And remember our pledge. One nation under God. I want to share